The more that I prayed about it, the more I felt like God was saying, you need to go and do this. And I did not get accepted.
Have you witnessed pretty powerful examples of transformation?
He confessed it before the church, during one of the services. It changed the way that they lived and probably parented.
Can you talk about driving the bus?
So I called Chris and I was like, Chris, the belt fell off the bus. I never would have thought to do it that way. You just never know what God's gonna do.
Why do you think God has placed you here?
Welcome to Changed Lives, a special limited series in which I explore the incredible stories of the people behind the scenes at Life Action, a ministry with a mission of reviving relationships through transformative events. Each of these individuals, my co-workers, have experienced God move in big and unexpected ways. The more I heard their stories, the more I thought, people need to hear this. In this series, you'll get a first-hand look at how God is working in and through the people of Life Action, the challenges they face, the faith that sustains them, and the lives being transformed along the way. Their stories are powerful. Today I'm talking with Tara, a former road team member who now serves at Life Action headquarters, utilizing her diverse experience to support churches and volunteers in powerful ways. We dive into her journey of stepping off the road after 10 years, the lessons God taught her along the way, and how she's seen revival and transformation in churches across the country. As you listen, think about how God might be shaping your own path and calling you to serve. Life Action is driven by the obedience and passion of people like Tara, whose lives reflect a deep, genuine love for Christ and His church. Maybe God's inviting you to join this work too. Enjoy this conversation with Tara.
I would love for you to start us off by just telling us what you do. What is your role? If you were to meet somebody in an elevator and they said, "Oh, hey, hi, what do you do?" How do you answer that?
I'm over the road teams, the church events. I'm the contact person between the teams and headquarters. So if they have a question, they're supposed to come to me and ask them. And I do lots of other little random things, but that's the main job that I'm supposed to do. So
Okay, gotcha. Great. So it's going to make a lot of sense to people why you do that after hearing what you've done in Life Action. So before we get to that part, though, I want to learn a little bit more about you. So let's go back. Tell me where you were born. Where'd you grow up?
I was born in South Bend, Indiana, and I lived there until I was 15. And then my dad got a job in Missouri, and we moved to Springfield, Missouri.
Okay.
And that's where my parents currently live.
So Michiana area, then Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Was that an abrupt change for you?
I mean, it was very different.
Yeah.
Going from the culture and the school that I went to here to going to there. There's lots of things that are different between Missouri and they don't really get snow down there.
Right.
So
did you grow up going to church?
I did. My dad was a pastor for 22 years when we lived here.
Okay. So he pastored here. Mm-hmm. And what was life like for your family? Was faith really a central part? Probably because your dad was a pastor, but what did that look like?
I mean, I would say yes, it was. We were very involved in church, and most everybody that I did anything with was people from church, and so.
Okay. And then when he gets a different role, is that a pastor role? Is that why you moved?
He got a job teaching at a Bible college in Missouri.
Okay.
So.
All right. So from pastor's kid, PKs, they call them, don't they?
PKs,
I'm learning this.
Yep.
And then you moved to Missouri and he's working for Bible college. So at that point, you're about high school age?
I was a sophomore in high school when I moved down there.
Okay. And as you think about back high school time, what did you think your plan for your life was going to be? What were you looking forward to doing?
I didn't really have long-term goals of this is really what I want to do. I mean, I knew I wanted to go to college, and my dad wanted us to go to the school that he taught at for at least a year. And during that year that I was there, I just felt like God was saying, you just need to stay here. And so that's where I graduated from. So.
Okay. And so graduated from college. Mm-hmm. What was your degree in?
I double majored. So I have a bachelor's in youth ministries and business management.
Okay. Did you have a plan after that? What you were going to do?
I didn't really.
All right.
I've never been a huge long-term let's plan this, because I think when I was little, I was taught so much don't hold on to things because God if you hold on to them really tight, then God will just rip them out of your hand. And so I think I went to the extreme of the other way where I never really like held on to anything because I was just like, okay, well, let's do whatever God wants me to do. And so I don't really feel like I had like, this is what I want to do when I grow up.
Did you have a lot of times like asking God what he wanted for your life and like trying to discern what that is?
During my senior year of college, my dad was like, you should think about going to Life Action. And so the more that I prayed about it, the more I felt like God was saying, you need to go and do this. I had never gone to a Life Action event. I never had really any like connection with Life Action. When we lived up here, our church came up to the camp and would do like picnics or whatever, like on a Saturday or Sunday or whatever. But we never like attended family camp or did anything with it. So I didn't really have, other than my parents telling stories of Life Action.
So why were your parents telling stories of Life Action?
Because they were both in Life Action. My dad was here in the 70s. He traveled for 3 years and then worked at the headquarters for a year. And then my mom worked at headquarters for 3 years in the 80s.
Did they meet at Life Action?
They met through somebody they both knew when they were here.
So did they, sounds like they had really fond memories of their experience there. Do you remember like what they told you about like why it was so impactful?
It changed the way that they lived and probably parented because they were both, like my dad's parents didn't get saved until like after I was born, like I remember. So he was like a first generation Christian, and my mom's family was kind of like they went to church, but they weren't like avid. So like just the way that they live and the dynamic of like their parents is very different. And so
it sounds like transformation really happened at Life Action within your parents, and then as a byproduct, how they parented you. And then your dad's like, hey, got this great place that maybe you should consider. And so you consider it after college and you applied.
I did.
What did you apply for?
A vocalist.
Okay.
And I did not get accepted. And so I reapplied the next year and got accepted that year.
Okay. What did you do in that year you didn't get accepted?
I just worked.
Okay.
I worked at Krispy Kreme.
Oh, nice. Delicious. So when you do get accepted, what year is that? Do you remember?
I started in the fall of 12.
Okay. So how old would you have been?
I was 25 when I came.
All right. So 25. So a little bit older than the typical road team member.
Yes.
Did you notice that? Did you notice differences between you and some of the other?
There were some things that I did. The first team that I traveled on, there were 4 people on the team that were older than me.
Okay.
So that did help a little bit with the dynamic, but that shifted very quickly.
Okay.
I didn't really have like a plan of like, this is what I want to do. So I looked into it, and then like I said, I was praying about it. And the more that I did that, I felt like God was saying, this is where I want you to go. And I thought, oh, I'm going to come for a year and then I'll leave and I'll go, do something. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
When you came for that year, what team did you join?
I was on the red team.
Okay. So what was your experience like?
It was good. I don't know if I would have stayed on the road as long as I did if I had not been on red team my first year, because I traveled with the revivalist I traveled my first year came off the road after that. He's a very prophetic preacher, and God taught me a lot through that, like during the first year of like just how selfish I can be and just different dynamics about the way that I thought like, yeah, I'm a good person. And then I came and I was like, oh no, I'm not really that good of a person. Like, so.
Were those hard lessons?
I mean, some of them were, yes, but.
Okay. So you're on the road with them. You're a vocalist for the red team. And then you do 1 year and then that revivalist leaves. So then what happens?
Well, the team continued on, but I was the financial assistant, was one of my secondary jobs on the road, because
business degree.
You have a main job, and everybody has at least one secondary thing that they have to do in order for the team to function. And so I was the business manager's assistant. She was very much like I want you to know how to do everything, so that way if something happens, we know what needs to happen next. Like it can still function. She was coming off the road the next year, so they asked me if I would be willing to do that job. And so I was going to switch to being the business manager the next year, planning on staying on the same team. Somebody applied who he had 2 siblings that were already traveling on that team, and he wanted to travel on the same team as them. And he applied for that same job. So they asked me if I would be willing to switch to blue team because they also needed a business manager. Okay. So that's how I ended up on blue team.
So you're with Steve and Debbie.
Yep.
On the blue team.
Traveled with them for 10 years.
Okay. So let's talk about those 10 years. When you look back on those 10 years, what are the thoughts that come to mind?
I was very grateful for those 10 years. I learned a lot. I have some great friendships that came out of people that I traveled with. I mean, I don't know that I would change anything about my time that I was on the road. So,
What was it like to go into churches across the country?
I mean, that was one thing that I really liked about the road was I liked the fact that for the most part, every church has the same end goal, and it's to see people grow in their relationship with Jesus. But every church goes about it a little different. And so to just kind of learn like how they did things and be like, I never would have thought to do it that way or whatever, like, but just how they have their structure and the way they do things might be a little different, but they still have the same goal in mind. That was one thing that I always enjoyed.
What are some other common things that, I mean, traveling on the road for 10 years, probably every church, like you said, has its differences, but there are probably some common themes among all of them.
I mean, every church we go to always worries that people aren't going to come back.
Yeah.
That's a pretty common thing amongst them. Like, they're like, oh, well, I'm really worried that my people aren't going to come. And then lo and behold, we do the event and people come back every
People
night.
always come.
I know, it's crazy. We have a return rate from Sunday morning to Sunday night that's, I think, between 60 and 80%. And yeah, some nights are going to be less than others, but you're going to have those people that are hungry for what it is that God wants to say to them. And so they're going to come back and they will rearrange their schedule and come back.
It's so counterintuitive in today's rushed world. It's so logical for pastors to think, I can barely get them here on a Sunday between travel ball and work. And you're telling me these people are going to come back every night?
Yeah.
And we tell them that they do. Why do you think people come back?
I mean, I just think it's because God is showing them things about their lives. Because the world is so busy, the like slowing down and just hearing what God wants to say. I mean, God says like that he's in the silence, like that's where you're going to hear him. Like you're not going to hear him in the storm and the thunder. You're going to hear him in the stillness and the silence. So like if you don't make time in your schedule to hear from him, then you're not going to hear him. So I think that's one thing when we go into churches, we try to tell them like, clear your schedules, like don't do small groups and don't do Wednesday night service. So that way everybody can attend the event.
What is it about that collective experience?
I mean, I think it's also because the body is all walking through, they're hearing the same messages together. And so God is speaking to people all at the same time and they're all hearing it. I've heard it described, it's like, you know, you send your kids to like summer camp and then they come back and they're like on fire. It's kind of, it has some of that feel, except we come to you and it's for the whole family. So like everybody's getting something.
In your time, have you witnessed pretty powerful examples of transformation?
I remember one church we were at and the worship pastor had been having an affair and like nobody knew about it. And he like confessed it before the church, like during one of the services. He was supposed to come up and then our speaker was supposed to speak and he came up and like confessed it. And then we just did like impromptu testimonies. Like people just came forward the rest of the night and were like, just confessing things. And it was like really cool to just see how much God was moving in the people. And like you could just feel his presence and you could just tell that he was there. And when you get in situations like that, people are just more, I think that there's a lot of people are just more open to hearing what it is that people are going to say to them, whether it be good or bad, because God is just preparing their hearts to be able to hear it.
What impact did that experience have on your life, watching this gut-wrenching honesty and the asking for forgiveness and compassion?
It helped give me more of a desire to see that happen in the country, like to see that happen in my own life, but to just be able to see like, this is what God is doing in this church. Like he can do that everywhere. And if people are opened to what it is that God wants and obedient to whatever it is God is saying to them, then they can experience that too.
Is the obedience part hard?
Sometimes, because
Yeah.
sometimes you don't know why he's telling you to do things, but
Yeah.
you know you need to do it.
Yeah. Talking about hard things, I know you look back on those 10 years with a lot of like joy and so happy you did it. What was hard about it?
Honestly, the people were some of the hardest things about it
Mhm.
but they were also some of the best. Like,
Yeah.
I have some host homes and people that I traveled with that I'm like, I love them, and but then others that you're like, I'd be okay, never seeing that person again or having that interaction or whatever. So, that can be hard, but I mean, you can't have ministry without people. So,
Yeah, it would be so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think that points to in terms of like being disciples of Jesus and walking in that way? Why is the people, the messiness, like the living in community part so important to the bigger picture?
I mean, because God calls us to live in community. Like, He doesn't call us to live by ourselves and to just be secluded and do everything by ourselves. So, like, you have to have people in order to have that community, and they they can speak into you and love you and help you to see where you're failing,
Yeah.
because we're blind to stuff like that in our own lives
Mhm.
most of the time, because either we're not looking for it or we don't want to see it.
Can you talk about driving the bus?
I drove it for 5 years.
Wow. So describe what that means, driving the bus, to people who maybe aren't familiar with Life Action.
So it's a people mover is what it's actually called,
Uh-huh.
and it's a 25 passenger plus the driver bus. So you have to have a CDL to be able to drive it.
Okay.
It means usually everybody else gets to sleep or read
Mm.
books or talk to people, and you're sitting up front driving through rain or sometimes snow.
Yeah. Do you have stories of like breaking down on the side of the
yeah.
road? What was that like?
I got good friends with our mechanic guy. I called him. I'd be like, "Okay, so this is what's happening," and he'd be like, "Okay, well, this is what it is."
I feel like the untold story of Life Action is the story of how many mechanical breakdowns happen when you are traveling literally across the country with like a caravan. The amount of breakdowns, like, and you have to be somewhere at a time. Like, how stressful.
It is the last time a bus broke down on me. I went to the other team, to Silver Team, and because they didn't have a bus driver, and so we had a gap in our schedule, and so I flew to them, drove to a church, did a conference with them, and then drove them to their next church. And when we were leaving that church to go to the last church, we made it like 15 minutes down the road, and I lost all power steering in the bus, and I was like, great. And I'm like in the passing lane, so I pull it over to the side in like the shoulder on the inside, and I got out and I can see the belt hanging down, and I was like, I'm doing great. Yeah. So I called Chris and I was like, Chris, the belt fell off the bus. And he was like, oh, you should have one. And I said, nope, I'm with Silver Team. They don't have a belt. Because Blue Team's bus, the belt fell off. I put it in the shop at least once a semester because the belt fell off or it shredded or had some issues with it. And so he started just sending an extra one with us. And then we still had to drive 5.5 hours to the church we were going to. So we got there at like 9:30 or 10 o'clock that night. I was like,
Road life is wild. So during that time, what if you could pinpoint one thing that God taught you about yourself, or maybe a difficult place where He found you, what would it be when you think back on that?
I think back to, again, one of those host homes that I'd be like, I'm okay with not ever seeing them again. My host mom's neighbor said she thought she saw something that I did that I didn't do, and my host mom didn't believe me. And so the whole 2 weeks that I was there after that were very awkward, and I was like, I'm ready to leave, because she just thought I was lying about it. And God taught me through that because I'd be like, it didn't happen. Like, I was trying to convince her that it didn't. And through that whole thing, like, God taught me that I cared too much about what other people thought about me. He was like, "You care what she thinks about
Mhm.
you, and it doesn't matter what she thinks about you." He's like, "I know that you didn't do what she's blaming you of, and that's all that matters. Like, I don't need to try to convince her that it didn't happen." And so
Hmm. That's a hard lesson, though. So what makes you make the decision to come off the road after 10 years?
I just felt like it was time, like God was just saying, "Okay, it's time to move on to the next thing." But that next thing was not leaving Life Action.
Mhm.
Like, I felt like he was saying, "You need to come off the road and go and work at headquarters." So
So when you come off the road, do you have a job already at Life Action? Like, what do you do
well,
next?
I didn't know if I did, so
Mhm.
we have to give our decision about next year in February.
Mhm.
And so we have, a few months before the travel year is actually over. And so I'd started having conversations with our HR department and stuff because I traveled with two of the people that worked in our HR department.
Mhm.
Well, then our CFO came to an event that we were having. He offered me a job working in the accounting department.
Okay.
So I worked down in the accounting department 7 months. I was down there.
Mhm.
And then I moved up into the church events department where I'm
Mhm.
at now.
What about your current role do you like?
I like that I get to use all of my experience on the
Mhm.
road because when people talk about, they're like, "Oh yeah, well we have to do da 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 da." I'm like, I did that. Like I know what needs to happen to make that happen and whatnot. So I also like that it has some flexibility. Like if I need to, stay at home and work
Mhm.
or help in another area, I have that flexibility to do that.
Mhm. Mhm. And do you find that churches call you? We kind of mentioned this, but churches call with a lot of questions because hosting a Life Action event can be a big ask, right?
Yeah.
The circus is coming to town.
That's what some people feel, yeah.
So that probably comes with some anxiety, both like giving up the pulpit and just sitting and resting and being with your people for the week and other people under their authority, but coming in and kind of running the show for a week. So, do they call you and are they nervous?
They don't call me tons. I've had a couple people call me, but there's a lot of things that Zach, who does our
Mhm.
scheduling, tries to talk through,
Mhm.
like to answer some of those questions ahead of time. But we have like a guidelines,
Yeah.
like we have packets and
Yeah,
stuff that
yeah.
we try to send out to them, and we send those out like 4 months before the
Mhm.
event starts, which usually gives plenty of time to try and get through it.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I usually get emails more of people asking questions
Yeah.
about like, I had a lady at a church recently email me and say, "We're wanting to, like, print a banner and put it outside. Do you have something?" And I'm like, "I don't know, let me see." And so I reach out to the creative team and say, "Hey, do we have this?"
Mhm.
And they're like, "No, but we'll design something." And so it's like random stuff like
Yeah.
that, but we've gone into more smaller churches this year, and so for them, it is a little bit more
Mhm.
stressful because they're like, "We only have 150 people in our church and we need to house 15 people." So it's like they just get
Sure.
really angst
Yeah.
about it and stuff. So
Understandable. Yeah. Why do you think churches should host a revival conference?
you just never know what God's going to do. Teach at least one person something
Hmm.
throughout the course of the event. It's a great time for churches to stop and pause from all of the norm and just be able to sit and hear what it is that God wants to say to them. The pastors get to sit and enjoy. And I've heard that pastors say, like, I never get to ride to church with my family.
Mhm.
Like, I usually am always here hours before they get here and stuff. So just for them to be able to sit together and hear what God wants to say together as a family.
As you think on your time here and working at headquarters, but also working on the road, why do you think God has placed you here?
I'm very much a team player. And so I think that that helps because if they're like, "Oh, we need you to learn how to do sound to run it for retreats in the fall and the spring." I'll be like, "Okay." And I do it, and I don't know that I do the best at it, but I do it. And so I think that that's one way that my skills are beneficial to being here.
The way that you serve is by being willing to serve wherever you're needed. And I think that's a tremendous benefit to this ministry. So, why are you still here? Like, what is it about Life Action or our mission that keeps you rooted here?
I mean, I kind of mentioned this, like, because I've seen God do some things in churches. Like, I desire to see everyone, like, to see churches get back to that love of Christ and that desire to know him deeper. And I believe that Life Action, that's their goal. And so I'm able to use the skills that God has given me to come alongside and help make that goal a reality.
Yeah, that's great. All right, here's my last question.
Okay.
um, what is your hope for this ministry that you've been a part of, that your parents have been a part of? I know it's all in God's hands, right? So it's again a hard question to answer. But when you think on it, what is your hope for us?
I mean, currently that we are able to continue going. Um, but I just think that we are able to open doors with people that have never heard of Life Action before and to be able to come alongside them and help them grow in their walk with Jesus.
Well, thanks for sharing your story with us, and it's a story that's um, really a reflection of your obedience to God, I think, and just the doors that He opens and your willingness to go and serve wherever that might be, whether that's driving a bus or singing or working in accounting. I think that's a really powerful testament to to your walk with Jesus. And I think people see that in you, and then it's like an example of like walking the walk, right? So thanks for sharing that with me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Changed Lives. If you were encouraged or inspired by what you heard, I want to invite you to take the next step. You can support the people whose story you just heard and others like them by visiting lifeaction.org/changedlives. Whether through prayer, giving, or sharing these stories, you can be part of what God is doing to revive relationships and transform lives.